the time to start. So, okay, thank you everybody who joined us for this webinar. It is supposed to be 1.5-hour webinar, and the idea of this webinar it comes from the fact that the methodology for internationalization plans for the beneficiary of the track program could be a little bit, let's say, not confusing, but very complex. So a first view of this for everybody into the same time could help everybody to see. So the idea is to look at this methodology and to try to understand it from the beginning, so could be, in fact, a very good tool for all of us at the end. Well, this presentation is delivered by me. I am a professor at the university for business, especially in agribusiness, and also I'm running the Agro-Transylvania cluster, which is one of the partners of this COSME track project we are talking about at the moment. Of course, before starting, you know, we have a chat, so if you have questions at the end of this presentation, we will have also a session of question of answering if necessary. But if you feel, for instance, the need to have a couple of questions and you don't want to forget, then just write it on the chat. So at the end we can write it and trying to clarify each of them. And of course, we will ask you, just for the comfort of everybody, to keep your microphones off as long as possible, so the signal will be much better and everybody can see each other much clearer and also heard each other. Well, the structure of this webinar, as you were informed by the flyer that was disseminated with you, it's quite simple. Firstly, we just have a couple of words about why we intend to create that methodology. Of course, most of the time we're spending discussing about the methodology and discussing about the ways that methodology has to be implemented by each of you. Which are the timelines, which are the deadlines, and let's say a final conclusion about this is not only about the timelines, but about other kind of documents like minutes, like confidentiality, for instance, how they will be assured for each of the companies. And of course, as I told you, at the end we have a session of question and answers for any of you. Well, this is starting from the objective. Of course, the idea of this project is to help you as a company to go internationally. So, well, in this example, we are talking about Romania, but you can keep in mind any other countries. We studied your business plan and we see that the companies who applied for this support have quite very interesting plans. Some of them are aiming, or most of them are aiming around countries inside of Europe, and it's obvious why, but there are other companies who have quite an interest in South America, for instance, or for other countries or other continents, depending on the idea of their businesses. So the idea for us is, in fact, to try to evaluate your situation from at the moment, to try to help you by coaching and by mentoring process to have a very good or a better, let's say, solution for internationalization. And this is done by 6 steps. Firstly, it's an initial assessment, and of course it's ending with the final assessment, and into the same time will be another 4 steps which are evaluating your company from a different, and your ideas from different 4 points of view, by technology, by the resources that you have and you intend to use it into the future, of course, by the communications tool, and finally financial, But financially, it's not so much related to a business plan, but to evaluate if those investments or the additional costs that you intend to do by going to international markets will be finally could be covered by the company. That's one, and if it's possible at the end that those costs get revenues, so you will have profit, no losses. Of course, the final assessment, it's quite similar with initial assessment, but in fact, it's just, let's say, it's filtration of initial assessment based on the other 4 meetings that we will have it during this mentoring process. And of course, we are going back, and it's necessary, if at the end we will see that it's not the perfect one, we will try to support the team, so to create a new vision, a better orientated vision for all those points of view, so to go international. So actually, the methodology, as I told you, it's created in 6 steps. Generally, the initial idea, it was to have 1 meeting in every month. That meeting to be face-to-face, so the company and the person who is supporting that from the internationalization process from the track project to stay at the same table and discuss. Of course, the situation during the time is changed compared with what we planned when the project was submitted. So at the moment, we propose a couple of changes, and that will be, in our opinion, in your advantage. Of course, we'll have to make all the 6 steps that it's mentioned there, introduction activities, technologies, resources, marketing, communication, and financial statement. But at the same time, we decided that that kind of meetings could be done face-to-face, if it's possible, the travel, or of course intermediated by different kind of electronic channels of communication, like this one. We already have 2 months of experience, and we know that we can use it and they can be reliable from that point of view. So that's one, it's not necessary to be face-to-face. Secondly, also those steps is not necessary to be done in 6 different meetings. Based on my experience, I already used that methodology for other meetings. The first assignment should be, or for the first assignment should be dedicated a specific meeting totally different than the rest. And the other 5 meetings, 5 steps could be done in another different 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings, depending on the expectation of the companies, depending on the time they want to spend it on this. So at least the first one should be totally different, and the rest could be accumulated in more steps in just 1 meeting. But our advice is to have at least 3 different meetings, and I told you the first one to be independent, because it's the most complex one from that point of view. Into the same time, we want to say from the beginning that the companies should be dedicated for this process, because the idea is to help them and to help clarify their ideas, and this methodology will offer you different kind of tools and different kind of information, so you can use it and to make a better business plan for the future. The idea is, of course, that we can present you what you have to do, and the information are from inside of the company, so the real job is done by you. We have to admit that from the beginning, let's say, to get data, to clarify your mind, that's up to you. And then will be a discussion with us, and we will try to clarify some of the aspects, and probably to give you good directions, or to give you more advices in case that we consider it is necessary, which all the time seems to be the case. So the idea is that you have to spend some time on that tools, but these tools is extremely complex. You can use it after the project is done for other kind of development. Is not created especially for internationalization. We'll use it in frame of that project to thinking about external market, but it can be done or can be adapted for any kind of development the company should have into the future. Doesn't matter if that development is on the internal market, nationally, regional, or local. So our advice is to take a good look of this this methodology, try to understand it, ask as many questions as necessary for you, and try to provide the good information. Then we can use it for this. Of course, some of the information we know that will be sensitive for the companies, and probably you don't want to share with your competition. So from that point of view, everything that we will discuss in frame of this methodology, all the information will be used only for the project, and they will not be disseminated with third parties. And of course, we will share in confidentially agreement with each of the companies that the sensitive data will not be used in other meetings. And of course, those six steps, we should go to them and have a look of each of these. The first and initial assessment, it's kind of, let's say, introspection of the company. So we'll try to understand better the company, and probably will give you a possibility for you as a manager of the company to understand better what is happening with the companies. We are aiming in this initial assessment 6 different steps. We call it why, who, what, where, how, and when. And for each of these, we are analyzing using different tools, the situation of the company. We want to firstly to really understand why you want to go to outside market. We will use the, let's say, very classical SWOT analysis, but into the same time we will try to move on to the towns metrics, which is using the effect the results of SWOT analysis. We'll analyze the production. We'll go to past analysis and cage framework, and then how to entry to the external market. And of course, at the end will be the classical theory of Michael Porter's 5 forces. So shortly, that initial assessment will go to these 6 steps as I explained it, and of course at the end of this we will create the milestone objectives, the indicators, action, and deadlines, and those one will be evaluated for the other steps of the methodology. So anytime then we will have a meeting, we will take a look at the milestone objective, indicators, action, and deadlines, and if necessary we will adapt it. If not necessary to be adapted, we just mention what steps and what improvement was done comparing with the other place. So let's take a look to see how this individual roadmap looks like. Of course, it's just at the beginning, it's the classical one with the information about timing, dates, companies, per contact personnel, how it was done, where, just to have a clear idea of how that methodology and how that path was done. And then it's just, let's say, a couple of information which is specific to the company, meaning just a very short presentation of the company, the experiences, the targets they are using, and what kind of internationalization expectation the company has. So it could be just a, let's say, an image and a very short abstract of your intention to go outside of your usual markets. We already had some of this information from your business plan that you applied for this project, but it's much better to write it now at the beginning. On the first assignment, we are all aware that international situation was really changing in the last year, for instance, the last couple of months. So probably some of your information from here could be totally different. So that's, let's say, quite easy. We just need a couple of questions from you, so we will know what you want to do at the end. Of course, everything that will be used, this will be much more clarified during the 6 steps which are presented. And actually, those information that you are using in this very small table will be very useful for the final assignment when we are coming back and to see what the expectation were. So there are 6 steps which are logically connecting one to each other. So the first step, it's quite easy. It's just a question why you as a company are interested to go outside. So could be internal stimulus, external, or other reasons like very subjective ones. So you are a very ambitious manager and you want to go outside, or you have a very good connection in other country, or something like that, and you want to take advantage of this opportunity. But generally, of course, this is subjective. The objective ones are those who are which are very clear, which you can see it on the market. For instance, you have too many resources, or you have to take advantage of economy of scale and the home market is not enough for this, or your product is unique and everybody will want to go to this and find, or you have technology advantage or something. This is internal on your company stimulus. So you are looking at the company, say, wow, we are too good for this market, or we have a very short niche on this market, so we have to go outside to use our advantages. But could be other external stimulus which is not depending on your company but on the market, like is international opportunities or problems of international markets. So this is just to clarify why you want to do it. It is interesting to see that it's based on not only on subjective ambition, but also on some clear resources and stimulus that we can use it, and that's an opportunity, and it's pity not to use it. Then it's just the clear SWOT analysis when we are going back to the step number 2. Of course, I will don't go very clear in what SWOT analysis, what opportunity, threats, strengths, and weaknesses are. Well, this is you just have to mention here in these tables all those elements, and just to know how your company is. And the idea is not only to have an image of your company, but to try to be aware how you can use those information in your advantage. So we will ask you and we'll discuss you in details how, for instance, how to use trends to maximize opportunities, or how to use trends to minimize threats. So this part will be extremely important for us. If that will be clarified, that means you know how to take advantage of your company and the external steps. So it's extremely important to be very clear. Well, of course, the next step, it's about the products and services that you provide. They have to be described at the moment, which are the actual consumers, what kind of services you already exported, and which are your experiences, why it's different in external, the same products, if it's different on international market compared with national market, which are into the same time services or products that you want into the future to export, even if they are not prepared, but well, I want to focus on that products because it's special and they can give me some advantages. I'm supposing that you understand that everything is connecting, everything that will be here practically could be in a way or another seen into the company situation on step number 3. And of course, the last question is, do you intend to have a specific product dedicated only for external market and not for domestic market? Well, of course, and then we are talking about the market, and that's a lot of information that you probably, some of them have it, some of them you don't have it. This is the past analysis, and past analysis is practically analysis of environmental influences, especially on the target marketing. It's coming from political, economic, social, and technological, but I suppose you already know that. Well, and for each of these 4 elements, we expect you to mark if it's favorable, uncertain, or unfavorable from your point of view, and how that can be used for your company. For political, there are a couple of the elements that you can take it into consideration, and we provide to you a number of links, so you will have some, for instance, if you're talking about democracy, stability, you can use that corruption perception index, and you will see that if you're going in that country, there is a big problem with corruption, for instance, and from that point of view, you could have some problems in your stability and also in predictability of the market. Also, from economic point of view, there are a couple of information that could help you, like GDP, labor cost in the countries that you want to go, and you have to see if it's favorable, unfavorable for you from that point of view. Also, we provide you a couple of links that can be very useful for you for different official database, like Index of Economic Freedom, of Data Bank, of World Bank. So that's interesting for you. How is your perception if those elements in social, we are talking about healthcare, criminality, of course, depending on your solutions that you are providing for the market, your products and your services, that elements or your appreciations of those elements could be totally different. Technological, it's actually physical things that can help you or can make you wonder if an internal market is favorable, uncertain, not favorable for you, like how the export goes, how big imports are, how is the research and development, how is the innovation. Well, that's just past analysis. Also, we will use CAGE framework. This CAGE framework, it's called distance analysis, meaning how different is the market you are aiming comparing with your areas where you are living. So how good you can understand the consumer from other countries. Of course, the first one is cultural distance, and there are a couple of appreciations that also you have to do it. There is Gerd Hofstede index about cultural differences. Those are actually the elements that are taken into consideration when you are talking about cultural distance, and you can find it different for each of the countries. You can evaluate it if that could be manageable for you, or will be quite a question mark. Then it's administration and geographical distance, which is the physical distance, but not only its physical distance, but also how is the possibility to travel or to export your businesses in other countries, and economic distance, just to have an idea if that will if that could help you or not. Also, the step 5, it's how to enter on that market. Well, going to that market, generally it's not easy because there are different kind of possibilities to go on the market. The most appropriate or the most common one are those 7, but for each of these, it's so the easiest one is just export, but of course into the same time you will lose most of the advantages because you are just exported and that's all. And the most favorable, it's that kind of wholly owned equity joint venture, so it's creating your own business in that country, but this is only if you are able to really control the mode of entry. So to see in which point of this between 1 and 7 you are, there is this methodology. You will have to give a mark between 1 and 7, and finally you will just make of course the very easy the average mark of this, and those are how you can control the operation outside if it's possible, how you can find resources on that market, how flexible it is, and how you can really have the possibility of controlling the risk. And of course, it's just if it will be 6.7, that means the best idea will be to go to that with this kind of entry on international market. Generally, of course, if you don't know the market, we just go to that very easy steps like exporting and something like that. So this is just to give you an idea. For instance, if you want to create let's say that kind of wholly own equity joint venture in different country, and you don't know the market, we will try to convince you to think again or to find more information about the market. Well, finally, it's so-called Porter's driving forces. It is an easy, it's very well known. There are 5 forces, meaning how the competition is inside of the market. How important are the suppliers? How important are the buyers? I mean, if they are controlling you, if they are just controlling the prices and the quantities that are providing to you for suppliers, for instance, and of course, at the end will be the threat of substitution and threat of new entrants. For each of these, there is an explanation what that means. So if, for instance, if inside of the company, so called rivalry, if there are a lot of the companies and they don't have any contact from that point of view, that means that level is reduced, so you have big chances for profit. But into the same time, if a number of the companies on that specific area are controlling the market, that means to can compete with them, generally you have to reduce some of your profits to be competitive. So that's just the idea, looking to that specific market and to see how big is the competition for your product. And of course, you have to do this for the entire 5 forces. And of course, their explanation what that means, and that's an explanation how the lever it is, so you can clarify your mind how is that to be done. And of course, at the end, based on those information, is just a very easy way to create the milestones, and the milestone is based on those 5 elements that we discussed: motivation, strategy, products, and mode of entry, and point of consolidation, and meaning 5 forces, Michael Porter's model. So we would like for each of these to create your objective, your indicators, what you want to do for that, and of course, when do you believe that can be done. And those milestones will remain the same for the following 5 steps, but they will be adapted based on the work that you've done. Well, as I told you, this seems to be quite a complex assignment of your company, so that's why I strongly advise to have a dedicated meeting only for this. Also, I guess that you have to send this, you have to prepare by yourself those information, because some of the information nobody else but you can know it. And of course, during the discussion with the, I want to say preparing in advance the meeting, and during the meeting, those information can be discussed with the with your partners from the track. Also, we have to mention the idea that all the time we keep in mind that, for instance, if you're interested in Romania market and your company, I don't know, from France, probably our colleagues from France will ask me to support you and to provide some information about past analysis or about 5 forces, for instance, so you have a very clear image on where you are going. And again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to clarify your mind and provide very good information and reliable information. So that is the first step. The second step is very interesting, and is just giving you an idea about your company and about the products of the company and how they are facing comparing with the rest of the companies on the field. As you can see, there are 6 steps: company, consumer, product, how you satisfy the needs, how is the time, and competitors. And that's very interesting. If you're looking to the green part down, something like that. Your companies, because there is a need to do what it's you're producing and how is that producing is different than the rest of the companies. And it's interesting because you have to go to see your companies, let's say, from external perspective. So you will try to look at the company, how the potential partners and competitors and consumers look at your company, meaning status, image, media coverage, other aspects. And why the consumer? Which is the need of the consumer? You have to understand which is the need of the consumer to buy your product, and of course, how is your product created, which is the specificity, and how it's actually need those consumer need, how it's able that products to answer to the needs. When will be done? When it's possible, now, in 2 years, in 3 years, anytime, could be adapted all the time. And why, the last one, unlike, why do you believe that the competitors or similar and substitution products are totally different, or are, let's say, quite different comparing with your product? Of course, the first page is quite the same. This is the explanation, and we just go to the first part, and we try to, or you try to give yourself an view about your companies, how it's recognized on the market, if you have brands, if your brand is well recognized, if they are good. You are talking then about your staff image, if you have problem with the let's say behavior, or if the guys are having a very good reputation and coming for very good companies, or they are, let's say, totally unknown for the market, how reliable are for potential competitors. Of course, how the media, if it's the case, how the media is describing you as a company, your staff, or your products, and any other objects that you believe that can be done or could be interesting and which make your company to be totally different than the rest of the companies, which make similar, or let's say quite common products with yours. And we will ask you in just one sentence, I mean in a couple of words, to try to summarize everything that you mentioned here about your company, like, I don't know, track project. It's a very good project, well recognized by the companies, and the people trust it. So that's a sentence, creating which is in fact our company and what we are as a company. Then we are going to consumer, and of course we will just explain the need that it's your product is answering to this, and how it is at the moment, and of course how do you believe they will be in the future, because if they will not be a trend into the future, probably it's better to reconsider the entire strategy. But we are thinking that you are facing different projects that will different products that will have a nice future. So we'll ask you to describe domestic and potential international clients, and finally the same to try to summarize in just one sentence what actually it's the need. So let's go back to track. We can say that the need is the companies, the ICT companies have problems or are not well trained to go to international market because they don't know the specificity of the local farmers, for instance. Let's say that was what I'm just saying without thinking too much. Of course, you have to think much more than that, because then you are explaining your product. And theoretically speaking, if you have many products or different products with very specific specificities of them, it is recommended to make this step 3 different for each of the products. Because if you are having, I don't know, artificial intelligence in one product and another product is like having a newsletter, for instance, they will be totally different. So it is advisable to have for each of these different, because as you can see describing the product, TRL, quantities, revenues are totally different for one to each other. And then you just think about how you intend to develop the project and how that can be done, and which are, of course, very important is how you see the risk for this point of view. Finally, we just ask you to summarize in one sentence the product. So in our case, our product is, let's say, complex methodology for internationalization for ITC, small and medium companies internationalization. Well, that's our sentence. Let's say it was quite general, but talking about track project. Then how is that satisfying the needs? That's meaning, okay, we have a need. We have a product which is supposed to answer to the needs of the consumer. Well, how is that done? How is done at the moment? How will it be done into the future? and what kind of need we will not be able at the moment or into the nearest future to satisfy, because our needs are no. Talking about artificial intelligence, let's say I will need somebody to check the temperature of everybody who is coming inside, and that satisfied that need is not satisfied. But it should be very clear and very specific to your companies. And of course, that one at the end should be summarizing just one question in one sentence, and that is, for instance, for truck, how it's done by supporting, selecting SMEs, ITCs, SMEs, to better understand the international markets or international consumers from other markets. So that's my summarize. Fine, when we want to do it, meaning which is now at the moment, is our products ready to be sold? If it's not, which level it is, TRL, what we have to do into the future. And of course, that's at the moment, what you want to do into the future, and which are the risks, and how you try to fight against those potential risks. Of course, finally, we'd like to create just one sentence, and for that kind, we intended to start in May and finishing before the 1st of October. Let's say this is when, from a truck point of view. Finally, why is different than the rest of the competitors? Why your product is different? Of course, you have to look what kind of similar product they are on the market, what kind of substitutes are in the market, and try to look at them and try to say, wow, they are very smart, but mine is different. Of course, it's about the product, it's about the competitors, and it's about the trends and how the future will be for these specific products or technology. And of course, we just need, again, for that differences of your products compared with the rest. Well, why it's different truck compared with the rest? Because there it's a very commitment team or commitment link between track project and beneficiaries, SMEs, for instance. And well, at the end, it's very funny. Of course, everything is done to be funny, but very useful. You will have 6 different sentences. Well, those 6 different sentences, which mean who, why, what, how, when, and like, you should try to make it in just one single idea, one single sentence, trying to eliminate that words that seems to be not very keen to your companies and your products, and try to keep only the information which are the best. And finally, it's the mission and vision. Mission, in fact, it's very easy. It's just a very short reformulation on those very complicated 6 sentences. And of course, the mission, it's the typically mission, it's something like that. We intend to send people on Mars, and we bring them in the next 5 years. So it's very clear what I want to do. It's very clear that I want to bring them back, and that will be in 5 years. So that's a mission. And of course, the vision, it's much more complicated and it's much more general and very catching, like our vision is, I don't know, conquer the sky. So not very precise, but related to your activities, and very catchy for your consumers. And then at the end, based on these 6 steps, you just take a look at the milestone, and if necessary, just mention what was done, what not, if something was changed, and what you want to do into the future for those 6 elements that you will keep it all the time on your mind. So that was the step number 2. Step number 3, it's going inside of your resources. So you are looking to see how your resources are, how they are used, how you can find additional resources, what kind of specific resources you will need it into the future. And there are 5 different kinds of resources: human, materials, equipment, facilities, and other kind like administration, for instance. We are looking for that one from the existing point of view. What will be our additional needs for external market, how to plan, how to look at the risk, and of course, very important is how to estimate the cost for additional resources. At the end, everything should be seen from the risk point of view, because you want to see if there are some risks that you are absolutely not able to control, or there are risks that can be controlled, and how to be controlled, and how much will cost you to control that risk. And everything it expressed in money, and you just look at this kind of resources, additional cost for resources. Think as a manager from the willingness to pay point of view, and if not, you just go back and try to reconsider the strategy, the meaning something is too expensive for that point of view. And the forms looks like that. Of course, the first part I will not going inside. It's quite the same. And we have human resources. And you are looking at this human resources. We just see those human resources, how they are at the moment, what kind we'll need from development, from international point of view. I mean, if you want to go for a specific other market, do you need somebody who is speaking that language? Do you need somebody who understands the specificities, for instance, the legislation, the export, the communication, those new or additional requirements can be done by your company's staff, or you have to hire. If you are hiring new position, how many do you need? If this is you want to do it by your staff, what kind of training do you need? So that's just the need, an estimation of the need. And of course, based on the estimation of the need, you are looking for the plan. Because if you say, well, we will need 3 new positions, that means how you want to share the guys. When you are sharing, how, from where you want to look, what kind of specificities, what kind of possibilities you are to create those new positions and to hire the appropriate person. Of course, for the stuff that you already have, what kind of training, where you can find the training, how expensive will be the training, how long will be, how will be the expected results from that point of view. And everything should be expressed from the risk point of view, if you can be done. And the risk is minimal, low, medium, high, or critical. As you can know at the moment, the labor force, especially the specialized labor force, is quite a medium to high problem at the moment. But who knows, you could have very good connection with providers of specialized labor, like universities or research centers, so for you could be not a problem. But in most of the case, there is a problem. Well, and everything at the end should be estimated in financial terms, if it's possible. You just have to see, wow, that will be my additional cost from human point of view if I want to go on international market. Also, into the same time, you have to look quite similar points of view for inputs, meaning what kind of inputs, how they can be obtained, how they can be obtained into the future, which are the, let's say, additional quantities and additional kind of resources that I needed, how I plan to get them, from where, from international market, from domestic market. I know the suppliers, I have to look for the suppliers, how reliable are the suppliers, and everything is then expressed in risk. Again, if the risk is minimal, low, medium, high, critical, depending on your companies and depending on what kind of resources do you need. Being an ICT, probably the most important one will be related to information. And of course, everything should be at the end expressed in money as additional cost for adaptation and for getting internationally. The same thing for equipment. How is the equipment at the moment? What we need, how we have to adapt it, how we plan to adapt it, which are the risks to find that technology, yes or no, how big is the risk, and how much will cost me to go for that specific changing the time planning to do it. And of course, facilities like space, communication, transportation, and other things that is specific to your company, how they are at the moment. What you will need? You will need additional space. You will need additional offices, additional building. How you plan to have it, from where it is possible, how risky it is. Of course, again, if the risk is minimal or critical, how expensive that, how what kind of expenses will they generate for your companies? That will be the end. And finally, that's additional other kind of resources which were not mentioned there. I don't know, like administration, like organizational ones or something like that. And you just try to understand if those, how they are at the moment, what we need into the future, how you plan to gather them, and of course, how difficult will be to have it as you plan, and how much will cost for you. At the end, of course, you will have to critically look of the results, because you do not make the results just to fill up a paper. Especially just take the critical risk outside, and also to look at the risk that you are not able to find a solution, or let's say it's out of your control. And the idea is that you have to estimate that kind of cost for this critical risk. How would it be? For instance, if that critical risk, I cannot find very good labor force specialized. That means that everything that I invested into the technology, I will lose, because everything is based on how much knowledge I can put inside of my product. And everything is finally tried to be expressed in money, and just take a look and saying, I want to cover that money, let's say will be around 10,000 euros. Do I want to cover that? If I say no, you have to go back to the steps 1 to 5 and try to readapt, to reduce the number of people, to reduce the technology, actually to reduce finally the cost, until the answer will be yes. And finally, you just say how I intend to cover the cost from my resources, my own resources, from European projects, from bank loan or something like that. So the idea is that yes, I know how much will cost me, and I want to cover those costs. And we just go back to the milestones and adapt it based on the results that we already discussed there. Steps number 4, it's quite easy. It's about communication, and it's looking at your company. The same, it's quite similar steps like existing, needs, planning, risk, and costs. And the idea is that we are evaluating during these the steps number 4, we are evaluating your company from other points of view, which are, let's say, not so hard, but more skills like visual identity, communication, objective channels, and events that you are looking for. So if you are starting with the visual identity, firstly, you have to look at your company and see which of those elements you already created and is clear and recognized on the market, meaning logo, colors, typography, photography, illustration, iconography, data, many others, web design, all those are very clear or no. And of course, how you appreciate your elements of visual identity, because it's subjective, of course, it's up to you to say it's good, we have to improve it, I don't like the colors. But anyway, doesn't matter how subjective it is, take a look at what experts said. So we provide you a link there. If you are looking for that link, you will have some explanation how, let's say, generally speaking, a successful visual identity looks like. Those elements that we have in front of you. So looking at this, you just go look at the elements and you will see, oh yeah, probably you can change that subjective appreciations. Then of course we are going to estimation of the needs. We are going to the plan, meaning do I have to change, for instance, some of these logo colors? Doesn't matter. Sometimes that's the idea, is that if you are going for a specific market, your logo could be sensitive for locals. I don't know if it's the case or not, probably not, but the idea or the colors or combination of the colors can remember something which is not very favorable for your companies. So it's better to take in mind if the needs, which are the needs, for instance, translation, and how you want it to do, which are the risks, and which are the costs. So it's quite the same steps like in the previous steps, but it's related to visual identity. Then it's the same for the communication objectives. So it's a communication strategy. Do you have a communication strategy? How often is it adapted? Generally, a strategy should be done for 5 years, should be adapted at least 1 in 2 years, but should be evaluated every single year. So do you make that process or not? If not, take a look and try to do it again. Who's in charge? Is the manager? Me as an owner, which I know everything, I'm just creating that, or I have a special guys which is inside of the company or some of the company, no one. So just to create and give an idea how well orientated your communication strategy is. Which are the objectives at the moment, how they are connecting one to each other, how they are connected with the mission that we created on the step number 2, which are the needs that you feel that it's not correctly done at the moment and you have to adapt it, how you want to adapt it, which are the risks, and of course, how much will cost you to make that adaptation. Those are the idea. Then we are going to channels of communication. What kind of channels of communication you are using? There are a couple, a classical one. You can also, we provide you a couple of links, so you can go to those to see if your communication channel that you are using at the moment are good or bad for you, or are the most appropriate for you, or you have to change it. So you just take a look at this before preparing this document, so we can discuss on what you already have. Then we are thinking about the needs. for that kind of, if there is some need of changing the channels of communication. For instance, if you have face-to-face communication on the local market, it will be quite complicated to have a local face-to-face communication for other companies or from other countries. So you probably think about creating different kind of communication channels, how you plan to do it, and also which are the risks and how the risk is expressed in financial terms. That's one of the things. And then the last one, if I'm not wrong, I suppose it's 4. We are talking about the events. Well, if you want to be known by the potential partners, you have to go to different kind of events, and there are a couple of events here mentioned. Of course, the list is much longer. What kind of, if your company having good or bad idea at the moment about those events, which are the needs for different kind of events, what kind of events, and where you can find those events, how you plan to going, and also we provide to you a couple of links here, which will be quite useful for you, because that provide links with the most interesting events, like matchmaking events in cluster collaboration platform, for instance, EN, Enterprise European Network, or many others. So that's just a couple of them that can be relevant for you. Of course, during these last 2 weeks, 2 months, a lot of new communication channels were created, and now we had to do it and to look for new potential platforms of meeting to each other. Finally, it's cost, and finally, it's the requirements that we intend to from the cost, how much will cost actually that kind of participating to different events. The end, it's quite similar like the other step, the step number 3. So just look which is the most complicated risk, how it's the possibility of answer to them, how that will be expressed in money. Can we cover those money? If yes, it's okay. From where? If not, let's do it again and try to find a limited amount of, or let's say, let's try to create a strategy which is in frame of the limits of our money that we intend to use for. And we are going at the end to the milestones. We are just going to the milestones, and we will adapt it if necessary, like before. For that, we'll do it for every single steps. Well, financial. Well, this is about money, and being about money, we just look at the money to see if they are too expensive or not. We try to understand if it's possible to have revenues and how much, and we just look at the profit to see if it's good or bad from that point of view, and which are the solutions for increasing the profit and avoiding the losses or reducing the losses. So they are also only 4 steps. Firstly, we just take from the entire documents that we already have, like technology, resources, communication, other costs. We just try to put it together and make a total of the cost to see this is taken from the other steps. Do we want to cover those costs? If yes, okay, that's good. If not, that means we are going back. You see that it's very interesting, because in that point of view, you already accepted, for instance, we want to accept all communication and we want to pay for them. But it's possible at the end, the total amount to be a little bit more complicated and bigger than you expected for each of the steps. So you just say, well, we have to think again and to try to reduce it. So we just go back to the steps. Also, could appear other costs that we are not able to identify in the other four elements, like I don't know what kind of other costs that we do not want it, or we were not able to put it there. Like, I don't know, I'm kidding a bit, but because that's the only one that is coming in mind. Let's say money for bribing the authorities to let me open my business there. Well, it's too much, but any kind of cost that we are not able to identify before. Then, of course, for the products that you identified it on the step number 2, we're just looking for all the products to see how much you expect to sell and which are the revenues, which are the risks, and of course, how you try to cover those risks. So the idea is that we need to see, and of course, that can be done for as many as possible products that you have in mind. And we will have at the end the total revenues. Step 3 is profit. Very easy. Just want to see if you will have very easy profit as taking out the cost from the revenues. Of course, this is a very easy point of view. It's not a really business plan. That methodology can be doubled by a real business plan for investment, and you can use here other very clear, specific investment indicators. But this is just the idea to see if you are able to have much more money from that internationalization that you invest in. It's just profit rate after that to see if it's 10% or 110%. And then just look at this. If you have profit or if you have losses. If you have profit, just look at that and say, well, it's acceptable. Well, it's acceptable. Yes, I'm happy. If not, you try to see and look the cost for each of the products for the entire methodology. And just look how that can be adapted and increased. Which period of time will be some additional cost for changing that? If there will be losses, it's quite the same, but from the point of view of reducing the loss, and if it's possible, of course, to eliminate the loss. But sometimes having a loss for a short period of time is not a problem if that will brings you advantages on long term. Finally, it's your evaluation as a manager at the company. Well, do we have the money for this? Can we obtain the difference of the money to invest in or to cover the additional cost? Yes, no. Projects, own money, borrows, other companies. Which are the major risks? How we try to do it. So this is just at the end, it's a kind of your final evaluation saying, well, I have the money, I want to do it, I can control the risk, let's go. If not, I have the money, I can obtain the difference of the money, but the risks are too much, so I have to think again. So this is just a final point of view before going to the final steps. And the final steps, as I told you, is quite similar with the initial assessment with the step number 1. But the idea is to start from the same information that you already have there, and trying to do it again. Of course, now you should have a better idea of what is happening inside of your company. So we expect an improved uh, idea, an improved view of what is happening there, about the company, what kind of needs you will need, which are the targeted, you could be changing after this process. And finally, you just go to the entire process like similar before and just adapt it based on the information that you gain during the methodology. Finally, of course, you are looking to the final milestone. There will be the end of this, should be in September done, that one. And we will just look at this and saying, okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's see how we can do it. And let's see what was done, what was not done, what we can do it by ourselves. So that's the methodology presented, let's say, in 1 hour and 15 minutes, more or less. Well, it should be from, as I told you, in September should be done, so should be before the October. Meetings, I told you, it was specifically asked to be done at the beginning. We wanted to be face-to-face. We just move a bit to those new ideas of today's realities, and let's be frank, online seems to be much more reliable. It should be design one meeting, one step per month. Our let's say recommendation is that the first step, that initial assessment which you've seen, it's quite complicated and give you the first impression about your companies, what inside of the companies, to be in just specific meetings, and the rest of the steps from 2 to 6 could be organized in as many as another 2 or 5 meetings, depending on your availability and depending, of course, on how complex that subject is for your companies. Well, every companies have to prepare the information in advance, and and that will be just discussed with the partners from the track project. We prefer to be done before coming, because in a meeting of 1 hour, 2 hours, or whatever, will be impossible to really get all the information that is necessary there. We rely on you as our partners, that you will be interesting to have a good results there. So you will be interesting in spend some time trying to find the best information so we can help you to improve it. And well, we have to be frank, the success of this methodology is based on your availability to spend time and also to share the information with us, because as I told you, confidentiality will be assumed by us in a written document, in fact, that everything that belongs to you belongs to you, and everything that we are doing is just in your advantages and no others. Well, finally, as a conclusion, it's very well to keep in mind that the project, it's done somewhere in September, but your company is probably and hopefully will work for a longer period into the future. So what we created, that methodology, is not only to be used in frame of this track project, but it's done to be a good tool that you can use it anytime into the future. So you can, if we will discuss each of those 6 steps, so you will understand what is happening there. After all, you can use it all the time when you intend to create another products, or any time when you are aiming a different market, or you are aiming a different target, for instance. Well, before closing, because you are talking about events, please save the date and do not miss it. in 22nd of June, in less than 1 month, actually in 3 weeks, 3 p.m. during Plant Intercluster Week. There is a conference. You are asked to register, because also it's not only a conference, but will be a matchmaking, so you can get in contact with other companies with similar expectation like yours, or with the companies which are interested to collaborate with you, or with or they are looking for products or solutions that you are providing. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the presentation. Of course, we thank you for your attention. We still have, I suppose, some times for some questions. Also, you have there my email address. You have the contacts of our partners in track, which can help you for you. Well, that's all. This is all I have to do. And actually, Nicolas just said to me, time for questions to Felix. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions, if that seems to be too complicated, we are here to support you. Well, the matchmaking, Nicolas said that the matchmaking will be in B2B will be in the 26th. So keep in mind that will be quite interesting and very useful for you. And we will strongly recommend you to do it.
Yes, thank you, Felix, for this presentation. Just on time. We said that at 10:30 we will finish. So if there is question, observation, comments about the methodology that we propose, feel free to contact us or write a question right now. All the document that has been presented and the recording of this session will be shared with you as soon as possible, maybe even today. So again, if you have any question, all cluster that you see the logo from CTA, Cluster Agri-Food, Agro Transylvania, Greenport Westland, and Vegipolis Valley, we are here to guide you and support you in this process. We have until September on our side of track, but of course this tool will be, we hopeful for all your reflection about internationalization. So as I can't see any question there, maybe we conclude. Yes, Christian.
Are the e-group different? When the idea is the agri people is different in new countries. Yes, I can assure you they are absolutely different, because the not only the methodology but the culture is different in different countries. System of cultures, the value chains are different, the expectation and the ways they are looking for ICTs solution are totally different. So yes, from my point of view, are big differences.
Hello all, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, me and Felix had a talk on this. We have some problems regarding especially the person from agriculture. They are getting old, and the younger do not want to live in rural areas or to work on agri businesses. So, for instance, for our business initiative, it's really would be very interesting to see other ways of approaching agri-food person. So and also first of all this, but the second would be that we would like to internationalize our business. So yeah, I'm very interested in this, and of course in other aspects of this project. So that was my question. If the agri people are different in your countries, we've been in fairs, and but I'm not sure the representatives from the fairs are really the agri people we meet when implementing certain projects or selling to the agri people.
Okay, so I guess that's all for me. Nicolas, it's your stage now.
Yes, thank you. Of course, on your comments, we are all agree that sometimes the producers and the final user of the solution that you provide could be very different from people of on businesses during the fair. But once again, we normally in our cluster we have a complete vision and overview of who is who and what could be the adaptation. So I guess if you have a specific market in mind, Felix, with our network as well, we could have maybe contacts with the final user that you are targeting, and we will see that. Yes, thanks again to all of you. It's 10:30, so I wish you a great day and a weekend. So see you next for the follow-up of this methodology implementation in your own company. See you and bye-bye.
Bye.